here. Our goal tonight with our transportation forum is to give as much information and answer as many questions as we can. So we are going to go through the slides fairly quickly because we do want to leave time to answer any questions that you have and clarify any points that we might make. This is not a public meeting of the Board of Education. This is an administrative forum, but I would like to point out that all 5 of our board members are here. They're listening. They are very attentive to what we are saying, and they will be even more attentive to what you ask and you question. So they want to be here and they want to hear what you say. We also have some members of the district team here. All members of the district office cabinet are here, and thank you. District council is with us in case any questions come up where we need his expertise. And Mr. Guineris, our transportation supervisor, is here as well, and Jim has been extraordinarily helpful in addressing the concerns that have come in from the public this year. So thank you. Mr. O'Keefe and I put these slides together over the period of the last few weeks. The transportation department in Great Neck Public Schools is equivalent to running a small municipality. And unless you really have had the insight of the enormity of the services we provide, it can be overwhelming to try to understand. So that's what we're trying to present to you tonight, and we want to do that well. We have representatives of We Transport who have been very, very helpful partners with us as we have made changes that they have had to adjust to, and they have been wonderful collaborative partners. And even since our last board meeting, have spent so much time with us at the administrative office, working with our transportation team to refine routes, review stops, make changes, and we're so happy to report that the efficiency of our routes, the timing of our routes, is so vastly improved since the start of the year that we really thank them for their partnership and their continued support. So we're going to go through some slides. And Mr. O'Keefe, why don't you take us up?
All right, so I thought we'd start off the forum and the presentation with just giving some facts because through social media posts and queries from the public, a lot of misinformation was spread, so we thought we would start with, what are the facts with transportation? So in New York State, the law was established in 1947 requiring districts to provide transportation, and the current law requires all school districts with children from kindergarten through 8th grade who live 2 miles or more, we must provide transportation. And for children in 9th through 12th grade, 3 miles or more. And the maximum distance if you were transporting to a school outside of the district is 15 miles from the child's home. So these are the minimum and maximums that all districts must provide, but then certainly voters can approve changes to these limits. So I spent a considerable amount of time going through board minutes dating back to the 1920s. In the early 30s, you started seeing references to transportation, but it wasn't until 1937 that the district actually formally established transportation here in Great Neck. And then you'll see over the various years, there were different referendums offered to the community to change those limits. So we started way back in 1937 with K to 6 being 3/4 of a mile, 7 to 12 being 1.5 miles. So there were just 2 different tiers. And it changed again in 1943. And then also later in 43 and 44, actually the federal government came in and took our buses from us for the war effort. So we actually had no transportation during those years, as you might expect. In 49, there was another proposition that changed the limits. I don't know why, but in 54 and 59, the same limits were offered up twice and reaffirmed again. Possibly they were looking for something different in 59, but they settled on what they already had. I didn't see, in the historical reference, why those limits were the same, so it's not a misstatement that it's 1/2 mile, 1 mile, 1.5 miles, and 2 miles. But the one thing you might notice is now you're starting to see a reference to private and parochial schools. So back in 54, I'm assuming in state law, there was a requirement to transport up to 8 miles beyond the child's home. In 61, we changed the limits again, and again the private and parochial went up to 10 miles now. And then the limits that we have today were established in 1998, where we have 1/2 mile for kindergarten through 5th, 3/4 of a mile, 6 to 8, and 1 mile for 9 through 12. and then 15 miles maximum for private and parochial schools. Another thing we heard from various people is they thought the changes came about because there was a change in the school budget that reduced funding for transportation. That is not true. In May of '25, the voters approved the budget. $18 million of that budget is for transportation. And a little more than $16 million of that $18 million are for transportation provided by our partners, We Transport. Most of our transportation is contractual. We do have 13 of our own buses and some of our own bus drivers for specific in-district and special ed needs, but primarily all of our transportation is done by a contractor. So that's a $651,000, almost $652,000 increase over last year, which is a 3.73% increase. And if you remember when we passed the budget in May, the budget this year only increased by 2.84%, and even the tax levy only increased by 3%. So the transportation budget is growing at a greater rate than either the budget is growing or the tax levy. And why is that? They're outpacing it. Transportation budget increases are controlled by a CPI, similarly to the tax levy, but different. It's a different metric. It's chosen at a different time in the year. And like many things post-COVID, the rates have gone up exponentially. So in that table below, since COVID, the average increase in the CPI is over 4%. So that's why transportation contracts, which are governed by state law by that metric, have gone up at a greater rate than actually our budgets or our tax levies have gone up. And just to take that $16 million down and to distill it into the different categories of where we provide transportation, I just wanted to share this slide. So this isn't the full $16 million, but this is the bulk of it. Public transportation is just shy of $5 million. Private school transportation is $6.8 million. Special education, $2.9 million. Then you have athletics, our academic competitions, and our summer recreation program. So just to give you a breakdown, where does that $16 million go?
So we found ourselves in a position where it was necessary to really review all elements of our transportation department. When we became aware that our very long-serving director was set to retire, we said there's a lot of institutional memory leaving with this individual, so it's important that we start to transitionally plan. So we did some things to make sure that we had a good understanding of the routes, our usage, some strengths of our program, and areas that we needed to identify for future focus. And we're also looking for a bridge. We knew that we would be hiring a new supervisor, but we wanted to have some consistency within the department. The Board of Education authorized us to add an administrative level position to transportation. Thank you, Mr. Canaris, for filling that role. Mr. Canaris was chosen very specifically because of his knowledge of the district, our community, the population that we serve, some of the unique nature of the challenges our transportation office experiences each day, and once again, he's been a very, very valuable asset as we transition from a long-serving director to a new director. So in July of this past year, our transportation analysis was completed, and here are some of the statistics that we want you to know, that enormity that I referenced earlier. Great Neck Public Schools had a total of over 9,100 students attending both public and private, with 90% of those students receiving transportation. When you look at some of the statistics associated with that, it's approximately 2,200 private school students attending 82 different private schools. That number increased to 84 this year. So there are buses moving across our peninsula and well outside of our peninsula, miles in excess of 15 from where we are, providing 56 large buses, 89 buses, 713 trips, traveling roughly 5,200 miles daily, or almost 1 million miles annually. So this is not a small process. This is not a small portion of what we do each day. It's the enormity of what we do each day, making sure that these students arrive to and from the schools they choose to attend safely. That is our goal. We try to do it as efficiently as possible. We try to do it as effectively as possible with our focus on safety. We looked further and we noticed that when we were seeking information about rider eligibility, we did note that, referring back to the slide Mr. O'Keefe showed earlier about those eligible for transportation, there were a small number of students who were receiving services that were not eligible for them. There were some other students in a greater percentage who had been provided with transportation that also were not eligible. So we had to think about how we were going to best address that. So we made recommendations to the board. There were some items within policy that needed to be reviewed and adjusted. And in November of 2024, we looked at policy 8400 and removed a reference to courtesy bus passes. I know that that's a term very familiar to many members of the Great Neck community, but in the state of New York, there's no such thing as a courtesy bus pass. Either you qualify for transportation service or you do not. There is, however, a child care bus pass, and many of our parents elect to apply for changes in transportation based upon child care needs, and that's something we can do, and that is something we do accommodate. I think, unfortunately, those two terms got intermingled, and people who are really looking for accommodation to assist themselves with child care asked for a courtesy bus pass. So we just had to educate our community, and what you're seeking is perfectly appropriate. Here is how we can provide it to you. Here's the documentation we need for the transportation office. And in the spring of 2025, the district also started to be strict adherence to the April 1st deadline application for private schools. New York State sets April 1st as the deadline, and that's for fiscal purposes. We need to budget accordingly for the number of buses that are going to be leaving the district for private school. We can typically estimate the budget for our big buses and our small buses that go to our public facilities, but we need to know who is going where so we can properly allocate our budget to accommodate all the needs of all of our private school students and the many, many, now 84 different locations that they attend.
And I think it's also important to point out that second bullet that although April 1st is the deadline, there are oftentimes a family that will come to us in May or June or even July and saying, oh my goodness, my child was signed up to go to this school, but now they've been accepted to a different school, and we need to move that child to that school. So yes, somebody does apply for that change in transportation. They have missed the April 1st deadline. They are initially denied, but then there's an appeal process where the parent is able to write to the Board of Education and the superintendent, appeal their reason. We evaluate the reason. We determine if there's a spot on an existing bus going to an existing school. In almost all circumstances, then the child is granted that transportation.
And in addition, in the first bullet, when we talk about those courtesy bus passes, we examined who was receiving them. So we could advise parents of, I'm sorry, we can't offer a courtesy bus pass, but what you really require is a child care pass, and here's the process in which to request it. But to be candid, some of the courtesy passes that were being requested and had been given in the past were for families who lived as close as 200 feet from the school they were attending. So there was an enormity of courtesies being extended that really ought not to have been. So again, the question that I had been faced with most frequently was, why did we make these changes suddenly? Why did we leave in June having one system in place to return in September to another modification to transportation? That's something I really want you to leave here understanding. So in March 18th, on March 18th, we were notified that the Division of Local Government and School Accountability in the Office of the State Comptroller said they'd be visiting our schools. And they look at policies and procedures related to internal controls of the district. And there are so many aspects of governance that the OSC can look at. They can look at purchasing. They can look at informational technology. They can look at all different areas of governance. The area that they elected to focus on after many, many interviews with our staff, interviews with different stakeholders, examining all elements of our books, our records, our financial statements. They decided that on June 3rd, they looked at the audit criteria for transportation, and their audit objective would be student transportation eligibility specifically. Because when looking through our records, it was noted that there were students receiving services outside of what the last voter referendum approved. So on July 21st, they met with district administration to go through their preliminary findings. And not until August 21st was their field work complete, and not until August 22nd was a meeting, on August 21st we found out what was going to be in the audit, so we could start to take action on what we knew was going to be reported. And on August 22nd, the very next day, we held a meeting with locally elected officials, some of our mayors, some of our legislators, our senator, our assemblymen. We were there to say, here is what we have found, here is what we need to do. We want you to understand that because we know your phone's going to ring. And we know you represent your constituents and you want to do it well, and we want to be good partners. And part of my job as superintendent, and I know our deputy superintendent feels the exact same way, is we don't want their phone to ring. All these folks over here are charged with helping my phone not to ring, and I want to return that favor to those who represent our community. So we brought them in to explain and offer perspectives. And they did a wonderful job, and two of our board members were there that day as well, in sharing with us what concerns they knew were going to be raised and where the trigger points might be in the community. And based upon the feedback from our elected officials, we made modifications to the changes we had planned to make. And I think those changes were well received. But again, when we knew what we needed to do to be in full compliance, we started to make some proactive changes. And some of you personally experienced that or are aware of the changes that we made. So we did that at the start of the school year because what we didn't want was for an audit report to be finalized and then have to take action on it in the middle of a school year. We did have to make a calculated decision about whether it would be more difficult for the community to adjust to a change at the start of the school year or at the midpoint of the school year. And we decided it would be better to give families just the 2 weeks notice that we had, that changes were going to be made, and allow you that time to make adjustments, knowing that through September it was likely that we were going to have to continue to review and modify as we did, rather than sending home letters and memos in December and January saying, we know your routines are established, we know you've arranged for childcare, we know all that, but I'm sorry, we have to make a change. We did not want to do that. So when the fieldwork was complete, we have the opportunity to look at that and create a corrective action plan. Those charged with your district like to be proactive. We knew what we needed to do, so we started to make proactive changes towards compliance. That was noted. The Office of the State Comptroller noted the changes we were making, noted our efforts toward compliance, and thanked us for that, and congratulated us for that, and supported us for doing that, and said, we see what you're doing, and we know this is a long-term project, and we know it's going to take time to make the changes necessary without being disruptive to the point where it impacts services to the community. We're going to give you that time. So they suspended the audit, and that was welcomed news, because that gives us more time to make changes, to allow families to grandfather through a system, to make changes that are not obtrusive to what we're trying to accomplish with our student safety. And we have that now. And they've suspended the audit indefinitely, and that is the big change between tonight's presentation and the presentation you heard in September, and we thank them for that. We're partners with our elected officials, we're partners with the agencies that represent our school, and we appreciate the fact that they're giving us a longer timeline so we can make the changes necessary for compliance without completely disrupting services this community is accustomed to receiving. And that's the good news. And this is what I just said. So I should have my slides memorized. Essentially, because we took these proactive steps, and as far back as November of 2024, when we started to make changes to policy and we started to look at our own, the office noted that we were doing this. They noted we were making efforts to try to continue to provide as much services as we could to our families without ignoring what we knew exists in regulation and statute. And we've worked very closely with the Board of Education, and we've appreciated the board's oversight and flexibility and the board's desire to make sure that we continue to provide optimal services for our students, but work towards compliance. And that's going to be a longer glide path, but we'll get there, and we're going to make efforts to get there.
So with that said, I know in the last meeting and the meeting before, there was a discussion, especially for these families where we're transporting children beyond the legal limits. You know, would we offer a referendum to the community for their consideration to extend those limits? And based on this longer glide path and determination that the controller will allow us the time to make the corrections that we need to get into compliance, we've made a recommendation to the Board of Education to suspend that call for a referendum. So basically, we're going to continue what we were working on until the controller arrived and, caused us to expedite our corrective actions. We're going to try to make incremental changes over time. That way, it won't impact families as much as it had if we had to do it all at once. And then the community will have time to plan. Families will know that specific schools are schools that we cannot transport to any longer. And we're not going to stop providing transportation for those children already enrolled. So if your child was just accepted to a school that, maybe they're going to be in it for 3, 4, 5 years, each year when you apply before April 1st, that child will be able to continue going to that school. It's just we will not take new applications for those schools. So the children will grandfather through them over time, and then once we get past that point where those childs have moved through those schools, we will stop transportation to those schools. The intent would be sometime during this year, we'll identify each of the schools and each of the families that are going to a school that do not qualify technically for transportation. We'll notify you. So that way you'll continue to get that transportation. You could choose to change to a different school, this year or next. But if your child has just started in a school that, say it's a 2, 3, 4, 5 year commitment to that school, you'll continue to get transportation every year. But let's say you have a younger sibling in the house, that child could not then apply to go to that school. We're just going to let the current child that's in the school continue through the school until they complete that program. Door to door. I know this is a topic that many of you have contacted us about. No, there will not be a return to door-to-door transportation. Certainly, we're committed to continue examining routes and bus stops and bus stop locations and addressing them, amending them as needed, but we will not be returning to actual driveways for each child to be picked up. And there's a number of criteria why, and most of these are quoted literally right out of state law. First one being is the criteria to establish a bus stop must be equally applied to all district students in like circumstances. So all general education students, whether they be public or private, the bus stops must be determined in a equal or like manner. In other words, corner stops or local neighborhood stops if a corner is not appropriate. That doesn't apply to special education, of course. In discussions about getting a child to a bus stop, which is another thing we've heard a lot from, we cannot make an assumption how a child will get to a bus stop. It is a parental responsibility for the child to get to the bus stop. They could be walking the child there, they could be driving the child there. Additionally, and you hear this a lot, especially in areas where there are no sidewalks, a district is not required to provide a protected corridor from a student's home to a bus stop any more than it is to provide that protected corridor from a child's home to the school if they're in the walk zone. And lastly, like I just touched on, if a particular child with special needs has an IEP that requires door-to-door transportation or special services, that's not affected by any of this.
Sorry, what do you mean by
In other words, you're a particular neighborhood, maybe there are busy streets in that particular area, maybe a lack of sidewalks. You know, we cannot create a protected corridor from your house either to the bus stop or from your house to your child's school. It's the parental responsibility to get the child to either location, not the school district's responsibility to move the child from point A to point B.
Understood, but what about the bus stop to where the child is, right? Because our bus stop, I mean, we can talk about it when you tell me the floor is open, but a protected corridor, I understand, from the home to the bus stop itself. But a bus should be at a bus stop that is in a safe zone, right? A zone where there's a stop at the stop sign or a sidewalk or something that allows the child to wait at the stop sign and be safe and protected, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but not all neighborhoods obviously have what you would consider to be, say, ideal circumstances with a wide sidewalk. A lot of our community does not have sidewalks. A lot of,
Do you take that into consideration though, when there's a bus
Well-
stop, when you create the route, do you take into consideration other sides of the road or a stop sign or maybe a crossroad that doesn't make sense?
certainly, yeah, and actually a lot of the adjustments that have been made, especially from the last board meeting, we went back and examined many of those and made modifications to those stops based on parental input and us going out to the physical location to take a look at the stop. We had representatives from WE looking at the stops directly, feedback from their bus drivers, our district representatives going to the stops directly, safety supervisor going to the stops. You know, not every location chosen is going to be the location that every parent wants because they want the bus stop back at their, you know, their home or their corner. You know, a bus has to take an efficient route through a particular neighborhood. We always try to make sure that the bus door aligns to the side where the child can get on from, not that they have to cross a busy street if possible. Some circumstances are more challenging than others, but we have adjusted stops for that. But again, when we get to the portion where there's Q&A, there's also an opportunity for you to give us additional feedback this evening.
Further, we will be seeking to hire a new transportation supervisor. There is a resignation from our current supervisor on the agenda tonight for the board to accept. When we bring people into Great Neck, we have very high expectations. We enter all of our partnerships with our employees with the best of intentions. Sometimes it works magically and sometimes it doesn't. And we are in the position of having to identify a new supervisor for the department. And we will seek to identify someone with a great deal of experience and insight and someone who can join the team and do wonderful work with our students and the staff within the department. Mr. Ganaris will stay on in his supervisory capacity once again to help us build a bridge between our former director and our new supervisor, and we appreciate all of that insight and Mr. Ganaris' work. For those of you who aren't familiar, Mr. Ganaris also serves as our district registrar and our director of food service. He has been spending a disproportionate amount of time, particularly after hours, focusing on assisting us with transportation. He looks forward to working with a new supervisor in the department. We will also continue to partner with our representatives from WE who have been physically present and very attentive to all the needs, and they have been helping us with our routing software and will continue to do that. We have been contracting with School Source Technologies to review all of our routing efficiencies within the department. We will continue to do that. We will continue to refine our software and make sure that the human element is not missing from it. And it's not on the slide, but parents have been asking about the bus tracking software. We're actively engaged in reviewing all technologies available, and as soon as they become available on the buses provided by we have asked we will pilot the software, we'll be the first district to implement the software whenever it is available. Right now, it's not available to offer. And community feedback will be solicited and reviewed very carefully. This is a QR code to a Google document. At the last meeting of the Board of Education, many residents stood at the microphone and gave very specific accounts of the difficulties they were having. We took copious notes. You all received, every resident who spoke received an individual response, and then the concerns that they raised were addressed one by our transportation department until the greatest level of resolution could be found. We want everyone here tonight and anyone who might watch this presentation that we will archive in video and post on our website to have that same opportunity. So tonight is not a night for being able to answer specific questions about a route, a stop, or some of the things that were raised last month. But this is a night to tell us what the situation is. This QR code will take you to a Google submission that we will begin to review as early as tomorrow morning, and we will go one by one through each of them until we have exhausted as many concerns as possible. The Board of Education asked for a review of every person who spoke at the last meeting, and the Board of Education was very intent in wanting to have personal insight to making sure that each of the concerns that were raised were addressed. And we provided them with that report, and we gave them exactly what the concern was, what was done, the timeline for completion, and current status. We will do that again with this report. So I understand that some residents here tonight may have specific questions about their child's route, the placement of their stop, and things of that nature. I would ask you to reference those questions to the Google Doc using this QR code. But if there are general questions about our practices or anything that we presented tonight, please step up to the microphone and we will do our best to answer your questions.
Hi, how are you?
It just might not be on.
Yeah, we're going to ask, because we do want to make sure we're getting back to everyone, if you do come to the microphone, please just state your name and your address so we can appropriately respond to any questions.
You said my address?
It's fine, we can look up your address.
So my name is Lisa Schoenfeld. Thank you for being here tonight and giving us this presentation. I do live, and I'm referring to the walk zone that was mentioned, and particularly the high school. So I know we can't look back on how this was handled, but just to understand some of the family perspectives, notifying us 2 weeks before school starts that these changes were going to be made did not give sufficient time for families to try to make alternate, I guess, planning. It's really very short notice. I am in a 2-working family household, so I just want to point that out. What's done is done. But looking forward, I thought there was mention at one point of maybe looking to change the mileage. So is there a way that that can be brought to the voters where the mileage can be shortened?
We expected a question about voter referendum and how that works and what that looks like, and that's the question that I'm going to turn to District Council, Mr. Block, to answer. That's a question we did anticipate. Thank you for posing it.
I was just moving over here because it's very cold over there. I thought it'd be warmer here, and I get called upon. The referendum, the way that was mentioned here, the state establishes the distance limitations. And the way that could potentially be modified, or the only way that could be modified, is through a voter referendum. It would have to go before the community. It's the community at large. Districts have these referendums from time to time. And it's not necessarily to expand the transportation limits. Sometimes you see those referendums to contract the transportation limits because there's a cost savings associated with that. And we typically see those referendums more than the former. But if there is slight indicates that, I think at this point in time, the recommendation from administration is not to put a referendum up by the Board of Education. Nothing precludes a voter from putting a referendum up to potentially change the mile limitations. But as I indicated, that could go either way. There could be multiple referendums in that regard.
Right, so is there some place where we can find the procedure to do that?
Yeah, it's also under education law, and there's particular sections regarding that. Those referendums would typically go up on the annual election, which is this year, it's May 19th. But their petitions would be due well before that because they have to be published in the district's legal notice. So you're looking at, like 2 months prior to the vote, you're looking at referendums that would have to be submitted probably by the end of March.
And sorry, I know a lot of people want to speak, but was there a reason that the board decided not to pursue a referendum when I know that was up for consideration?
The administration made a recommendation to the board that because of the longer glide path that we were permitted to follow towards a corrective action plan, that a referendum was not well advised. If we put up a voter referendum and it fails, we are obligated to make the changes to the limits immediately.
Thank you.
Hi. Thank you both so much for your time, for this presentation, the history lesson. I'm Natalie Goldstein, Daniela Kirshner, Danielle Lev. We all live on Brook and Road on the Hill, so it's a interesting way of getting to our homes. We actually came today for the first time because our route got changed recently. So first, for the beginning of the year, we had a route change. No one said anything, we were fine. We understood that there were different things being taken into consideration. And then all of a sudden we got new bus drivers, new route change, new stop, new times. We're standing here today, not because of bus passes, not because of the distance, not because of door-to-door service. We're standing here because literally the safety of our children is at stake. And I think that the safety of anyone who's passing Old Mill Road is at stake. So I'm just going to give you a brief description of how our street works. Road on the Hill, very short street. A bus can't come there. We understand that. We never asked for a bus to come down our block. When we walk, we have to walk all the way down Road on the Hill and all the way Brook Lane. We've never complained. We understand it's a difficult road to get up on. The issue is that we always, I've only been on the bus, I think, for 2 or 3 years. It's always been, we don't have a sidewalk. Mm-hmm. So this bus would come out of Strathmore, turn around, come on to Old Mill Road so that they're on Brook Lane and Old Mill Road. Our children would stand on someone's grass. We would all stand around them and they would step right onto the bus. Since the route change, which was I think 2 weeks ago, we haven't had school for a few weeks because of the Jewish holidays. The bus is now across the street on Old Mill Road. Now I just want to give you a visual of what happened specifically today. There are 6 children on the bus. The oldest one that gets off at this stop is 7. Okay, I don't let them cross the street. I don't even let them walk down the street on their own. There are 6 children between the ages of 7 and 5, many of which, I think 3 of whom, they're taking the bus for the first time. They're crossing Old Mill Road. The bus driver didn't flag me down. I didn't even notice that he was coming from that way. Stopped on the other side of Old Mill Road. There were probably 15 cars, no exaggeration, parked behind the bus. Another 10 cars on the other side of the stop sign waiting for the bus. And these children were running in fear because they're in the middle of Old Mill Road. Now, I see the traffic that goes on this road every day. We wait there for the bus, sometimes 15, 20 minutes. Still, not complaining. We're used to it. We understand the circumstances of our home and the bus situation. What does bother me is that is not a safe situation at all. I don't care if they're 5, 7, 14. I think that Old Mill Road, Bayview, Middle Neck Road, which we all know, they're super busy streets. Now we have children that are on electric bikes. They don't stop at stop signs. They don't stop for school buses. They don't know the rules. They're not on the sidewalks. And they're racing by, or even a regular car that doesn't see these children crossing the street. It's terrifying. And I cannot allow my child to get on the bus again if I know that my 5-year-old is crossing Old Mill Road where his safety is in someone else's hands. So I don't know if the route changed. We've called the district multiple times. First they told us that the bus driver wasn't listening to the route. Then they told us that the route changed. to me, the only thing that should matter is the child's safety. So I appreciate that you take that into consideration, and I don't know anyone else's circumstances, but in this particular stop, safety is not being considered.
So what I'm going to ask you to do, and I appreciate you expressing what the concern is, I'm going to ask you to scan the QR code. I'm going to ask you to articulate exactly so we know we have all the correct information, and I'm going to promise you that a safety supervisor will come to the stop to evaluate the route and the stop and the position.
Here's the issue with that. I just had 2 weeks of no school where someone could have spent the time doing that, right? Because I personally didn't realize that that was it. It happened one time before the route change, because I think the route change was September 29. We didn't have school for about 2 weeks, so this is only the second time that I'm seeing this, and the first time I thought that the bus driver made a mistake. Now I'm seeing that this is the actual route. I can go 2-3 weeks to months where that issue is not going to be resolved. And I don't feel comfortable putting my son on the bus.
I promise you, the timeline will not be months.
Okay, so what is the timeline?
I'm within the next few days.
Business days, calendar days? Are
Within
you
the
gonna take
next
my
few
contact
business,
information?
and I'm
How
saying
are we
this,
gonna address
I'm
this?
saying this comfortably on record and on camera. Within the next few business days, a safety supervisor will go directly to the stop you are questioning to examine it.
Do you have anything to add? All right, I appreciate it.
Thank you all. We appreciate you.
Hi, thank you very much. One question and one comment. My comment is towards WeTransport.
Yes, please just share who you are, sir.
Hi, Jonathan Amanoff. I live on Burberry Lane.
Pleasure to meet you.
I'm grateful that my daughters get transport to Far Rockaway, a school in Far Rockaway, and they're going to be grandfathered in. But this year, due to the changes for WeTransport, my kids are sitting on the floor of the bus.
I'm sorry?
My daughters are sitting on the floor of the bus because the bus is overpacked. I'm going to say to WeTransport, if they could please look into that, I'd appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, and my second question is a little bit more clarification. In your slide, it said no new applications will be accepted to ineligible schools, even if a sibling is currently attending the school. It's going to be a little weird for a child not to go to school that his siblings are going to because he's not allowed to be grandfathered in, which I understand. Is there some sort of remedy or any backup solution to this?
We can have further conversation about that, sir.
Well, okay. I just know they go to TMM BBY in Far Rockaway.
Yeah,
Okay.
if you can.
Would it be possible if a child can go on the bus from a different stop?
We are not speaking in absolutes tonight for a reason.
Okay, well-
So as I would say to any parent, we will always look at every individual circumstance and examine it very carefully.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much to the Board of Ed and administrators for holding this forum for the Great Neck South community. The Great Neck community. My name is Olivia Gu. I'm a senior at Great Neck South High School, and I'm the social media editor, managing editor of the school paper there. I'm currently writing an informative news article on the changes that are happening transportation-wise in our community. But on a more personal note, I'm one of 26 children in the school that don't have a bus route this year. And I live 0.9 miles away from the school, which requires me to cross the Long Island Expressway and Lakeville Road. And I actually just walked this path today, and I am right by the cars and walking through bushes, leaves, like maybe poison ivy, I don't know.
I hope not.
But I hope you guys understand that the Great Neck community does expect this excellence. And we always have received the excellence in our education, the teachers, the very peers we work with, and to be kind of let down and have our expectations slightly lowered because we aren't able to safely get to school is a little bit of a disappointment as someone who has also lived in Great Neck my whole entire life. And I did want to ask, how can the students be involved? Because I know there's also an issue with the late buses, and a lot of my friends are upset about it, but we don't know how to get involved. The Phipps building is literally a 5-minute walk away, but we don't know how to get involved. And what is happening in the conversations that the community's not seeing? What is going on in the meetings that you guys are having, and how are these changes, our complaints, being turned into changes?
I can help you with both questions. First, there is a remedy to the concern that you've raised about the walking distance. So I'm going to ask you to visit Mr. DiPaolo, and we can have
I
that,
spoke with
and
him
we can have
earlier.
that conversation, because you don't necessarily need to walk all the way to the school. So we can talk about how that is a remedy.
Thank you, because
the-
if I take a safer route to, it's over 1 mile already, so.
There you go. And the other piece of the puzzle about student voice is very important.
Right.
And you have a building team of guidance counselors and deans and assistant principals and a principal who are available to you all day. And they are the ones who best articulate what they're hearing from the student body to myself, Mr. O'Keefe, the Board of Education. So I encourage you to use those avenues that you have available to you as a student, because student voice means a great deal. I myself will be meeting with a group of seniors in just a couple of weeks to start talking about these issues that are important to you, and you absolutely have a voice that we greatly value. So please don't feel that we're not hearing the concerns, we're not listening to the concerns. One of your classmates who's standing 2 behind you in line made some comments at the last meeting that we addressed about 2 days after he made them. The late buses are a concern, but to be candid, we had put ourselves in a position where we weren't able to provide the service we were advertising. 4 o'clock bus can't be a 4 o'clock bus if it's only left Lakeville Elementary School at 3:45. It can't happen. We can't get the elementary school students home fast enough to return to South High at 4 o'clock. So the solution was to make it a 4:15 bus. Now, some of our students said, well, now I'm waiting another 15 minutes. But I'd rather just be honest and transparent with the students to say, we can't give you a 4 o'clock bus. Here's your 4:15 bus to make sure you get home safely.
Exactly, okay. And I'm still also noticing sometimes that the buses are coming later than 4:15. So if that is still an issue, I'll be sure to contact you guys.
Thank
One
you.
thing- I'm sorry, you guys. I did want to ask about the voter referendum. I know I'm not eligible to vote yet, but I do urge this community that we maybe should hold a voter referendum, because based on the statistics I've seen, the last one was held in 1998, and a lot has changed in 27 years. Like, I wasn't even born yet. But I really do urge that
You're
maybe we do have
a reporter, you're a researcher. I'm going to give you an assignment. Review the last 20 transportation-focused referendums and held on Long Island and calculate the percentage of them that have passed. I'm going to give you a hint. It's a round number.
Okay, got it. All right. Thank you, Dr. Wilson.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Marielle Fuchs. I live at 2A Lake Road. As you know, Lake Road is there are no sidewalks. It doesn't really feel safe, even for my kids to ride the bike. I'm a little nervous. They're 5 and 7. So my first question is about bus counselors or a bus safety monitor. The fact that they have to put their seatbelts on by themselves starting at 4 gives me a little bit of hesitance that I believe they're doing it, but I don't know for a fact that they're doing it. And I do see sometimes kids standing up, and in the summer, when it's warm, that buckle is very hot. I just don't know if we can possibly place a person or put someone in charge or make it the charge of someone while they are on the bus to be in a seatbelt, which is the law.
It actually isn't the law.
It's not the law that they're buckled in a seatbelt.
There's no requirement to wear a seatbelt on a school bus. And for each parent that might request a matron to assist a child with buckling the seatbelt, there would be parents that would object to any adult touching their child around the waist.
Okay, that's an interesting take on it. Thank you. I'm mistaken about the
Yeah.
law, but that is.
It's surprising.
Point
It's
of
surprising,
view. I can see that.
but
Okay.
there is no requirement.
Okay. The other reason that I came tonight is because I know there's an app called Where's My Kid?
Mhm.
And I heard about it. I was in the school district for about 3 years. My kids were taking the bus. For one of them for about 3 years. The other one had just started. And I just so happened to be at a play date, and someone just so happened to tell me about this app. Now, from what I understand, this is not a Great Neck Public School specific. This is a nationwide app, right? And you can put in your information. Is there another way that we can communicate in real time Because just this morning, for example, the buses, when they are late, we are forced to make a game time decision and say, well, I have to be at work, and I can't just wait here. It's 8:58, and I gotta go. So of course then, I'm throwing off the bus drivers waiting there for me. So we're just like two ships like that. And I'm sure it's making them late because they're waiting, they don't see us, they don't call me, and I can't call them. So my husband has like in the past, we've gotten their individual numbers, but then there's a sub. It's just, it comes down to like minutes. And then I hear from the teachers when they're late that it affects their performance. I mean, I have to drop my kids off down. Nobody will come, and I understand it's not really, it's very, very strange to the setup on Lake Road. I have to get in my car, and that's fine, and I respect that you don't want to do a U-turn to come around. It's a long cul-de-sac. My husband and his sisters have been going to the school district since the 80s. They bought the house in 1978. I get it. If I get down to the ends of the driveway, I have to pick whatever spot I feel like is most comfortable without a sidewalk, put on my hazards, and hope that the person behind me, if I'm facing Lakeville Road, if I'm on the side where the lake is, either way, that someone isn't like texting or doing something, and that like my child or the car itself, is not even, like, I don't even know where to put the car because there is no sidewalk. There's no like specific side of the street. It feels very haphazard when it comes to the timing and the safety of where am I supposed to go, because there's parents driving and lots of traffic at the corner of Lake and Lakeville Road, which is essentially where I drive down to
Yes.
to wait.
I'm going to ask you to do the same thing I asked the prior speaker. If you would please be so kind as to enter all that information into the Google document, I will make you that same assurance that we will send the safety inspector to review the spot that you're describing.
Okay, I have another question though about the community.
I am going to ask all of our remaining speakers to try to be as brief and succinct as possible because we do have a public meeting of the Board of Education starting in 30 minutes.
Okay, I just wanted to say I do appreciate your time.
Sure.
And I really appreciate your letting me
Thank
speak.
you.
I think we all have things to say and we have questions, and it's about our children. That's
Of
why
course.
we're here. Okay.
Of course.
The only thing that I need to know is that tomorrow morning, am I going to be sitting in my car until 8:45, waiting for the bus? Am I going to be notified if the bus is running late? It's day to day. Every morning is very. I don't know. Like, and then, is there a way to communicate with the driver?
Is there a way to communicate directly with the driver? No. When we know there is a specific problem with a route, it has left the bus on delay. We had to get a substitute driver.
I get those emails. I get those notifications.
You get the email.
Yeah. Okay, so I will send my formal, my question.
Your Google Doc. Thank you.
Yeah, and we have had that app for the last 2 years. We implemented it in the elementary schools within the district, then further rolled it to the middle schools. It does not work as advertised. Again, it's a third-party application. WE's parent company, Beacon Mobility, is actually trying to develop their own in-house app, which they hope to have test-ready maybe mid-year of this school year. And again, as Dr. Bassett earlier said, as soon as it is available to roll out, we are willing to be a test pilot on some routes, all routes, whichever routes that we can put it on, to give it a try, because unfortunately that application we thought was going to be a good app for parents. It does not refresh in real time. You know, you're looking at a bus that you think is a mile away and you just miss the stop, et cetera, or vice versa. So it is being worked on.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. And again, Kevin, before you step to the podium, I am going to ask our remaining speakers to be as succinct as possible, and please follow up with the Google form so we can be very attentive to your concerns. We want to make sure we address every concern that exists within, but we're going to 2 minutes, please, so that we're on pace to start our public meeting on time.
Yeah, so my name's Kevin, junior Great Neck South High School. I'll make it very quick. Again, I understand you guys are working very hard, and I really do appreciate that, but what is so frustrating for me is the lack of communication on when the bus is gonna come, when it's on late. So I understand the late buses change from 4 to 4:15, 4:50 to yada 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 yada, so on and so on. And I've heard cases from my friends saying that even with the 4:15, buses are still showing up very late. And I even heard my friends saying that they felt the need that they need to walk home now. And again, someone that just said earlier, walking along Lakeville Road, that's not really safe. I mean, unfortunately, some Great Neck drivers do believe that a red light is optional, and sometimes red lights is green light, and green lights like red lights. Reverse psychology sometimes, but again, when buses do not show up and we have no idea if it's gonna show up or not, it's like a game of roulette. I mean, seriously, this is just our productivity time adds up. Like, we lose these time, it adds up week by week, and unfortunately, to me, it gives me a message that our time's not being valued because just by the lack of communication on the bus delays and also bus changes. I mean, apparently, bus 26 got changed to bus 29, and bus 29 got changed, and I had no idea until the bus driver told us, and kind of created some chaos, and there was lots of miscommunication. So I have a question. How do you feel about this in general? How do you feel about kids feeling the need that they need to walk home along Lakeville Road and feeling like they don't know what to do because they don't know how to address this issue? So,
Kevin, I'm going to do you a favor. We have an appointment on the calendar next week, do we not?
sorry, repeat that again?
We have an appointment to meet with one another on the calendar next week.
Yes, I look forward to it.
So let's pick up the conversation then.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
My name is Ben Law. I live on Tain Drive, Russell Garden, great communities. Really enjoy the Great Neck, and I appreciate all the hard work you guys have been putting in, putting together these presentations. My biggest concern is how the rules around like the radius, the distance to kind of decide what falls within the district, what falls outside the not even district, what falls within the bus routes. That was kind of very, as we can all agree, it's kind of archaic rule, right? It's something that came out many, many years ago, hundreds of years ago, probably at this point. Right now, Long Island looks very, very different. We just look back 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. And right now, my community are on the southern side of the Northern Boulevard. As we all know, Northern Boulevard has changed a lot, enormously, over the years. Traffic has significantly increased over the years. And there's, my area, neighborhood is next to two. One is a car rental and one's a car dealership. Tons of traffic's coming out, people just driving cars around, testing, speeding car. That does not create a very safe walking path for us even physically taking the kids to the schools, even though we are kind of within the distance. Our bus stop was taken away during the summer camp time without much notice or heads up. We dealt with it, we voiced our concerns. We're very appreciative that our bus stop has been restored, but it sounds like it's still kind of in flux, right? There, you guys are still evaluating the stops, potentially it could be taken away. Again, it's the human element to this, right? Like if someone just go to Northern Boulevard, stand there around 8 a.m., 7:30 a.m., you will see the kind of traffic people going through. And I just want to re-echo that.
And sir, if you are kind enough,
yeah,
we will do exactly what you just requested.
Okay, appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ava Malka. I live on Arundel Avenue. I've been here a few times. I am a little bit concerned about the 15-mile limit. Number one, I'm concerned about how that's being calculated. I had a child that I was told was not going to get busing because he wasn't within the 15 miles. He got it because of his IEP. However, it is within 15 miles. I was able to show the transportation department a Google route that was legal for buses, and they told me, sorry, we can't follow that. We use our own software. But interestingly, I have a tracker in my child's knapsack that actually gives you second-by-second coordinates as the bus moves along. And his actual drive that the bus driver took him to school was less than 15 miles. So like, if the actual driver is taking him in less than 15 miles, I'm not sure how these calculations are being made. I just hope that they're really done in a fair and proper way. It
Of
worked out for me, but
Of course. And
that
I
should
think
not happen, that like I wasn't able to speak to anyone and I was just shut down as soon as I tried calling it.
I regret to hear that, and I'm sorry that that was the case. But I will share with you that I believe you heard tonight that all students who are currently receiving transportation will continue to receive transportation.
Yeah, so that's my next part. Even though he's receiving, and that was just about the calculation of 50 miles. If I do have kids in school right now in Paragway and other schools that are technically not within the 15 miles, and I have younger students who are looking forward to going with their students, I know that there are laws where if there's someone in a district going to school, another child can go to a stop. I have to apply for school next week. Do I not apply because I know I'm not getting schools? Can I apply? I know that there are limits. I know if you don't have answers by
Yes,
April
ma'am.
1st, then I'm not going to even be able to get busing even if I switch schools. Like, this is like a very up in
As
the
I
air.
said to the gentleman who raised a similar concern, we're not speaking in absolutes tonight. We look at every individual request on a case-by-case basis. I'm going to ask you to enter all the information into this Google form so we can look at your case specifically.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
And then one last thing just about the tracker. I know that you mentioned about moving on and looking. I just wanted to, now that we tracker is here also, recommend to make sure we should be tracking the drivers and the routes and not the buses. I've been getting notifications the past 2 weeks from Where's My Kid about a kid in private school on a big bus every single morning and afternoon saying that the bus arrived at school and left, school is closed. So that bus was not picking up or dropping off kids at school. So I did want to make a mention of that.
Thank
and
you.
then before school, when I did check the Where's My app, that bus was sitting in a lot in Garden City. It was not on its way, so it just never worked at all.
We are definitely seeking to improve our software. Yes.
Good evening, Adam Turek. I live off Steamboat. I have 2 kids at JFK. How are you, Dr. Bosserts?
Good to see you.
Good to see you. Couple of questions, because my son is in pre-K,
Mhm.
and I was deeply troubled to discover at the start of the year we were told the minibuses that had been in pre-K for the last several years will no longer be used, and all the pre-K kids will be put on the big buses with the elementary school, with the rest of the elementary school kids. I was wondering what was the logic behind saying that these 4-year-olds are going to be in the buses, the 11 and 12-year-olds, and not given the same minibus safety they were given in the past.
The bus routes to JFK are for pre-K through 5th grade.
Okay, but you have a situation, especially with these kids, where they're not comfortably on and off the buses. I know that to be that my pre-K teacher very kindly put stickers on my son every day to say, this is the bus he's on, this is the stop he gets off at, and his older sister feels tremendous stress because she's being told, you have to look out for your little brother. She's 7 years old. It is not fair to put that kind of pressure onto her.
We don't currently have bus routes specific to the pre-K at JFK.
But you have 84 buses going all the way around Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk. Do you understand where my frustration comes from?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. I will fill up a survey with that, and thank you for your time.
You appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dimitri Bonaris. I'm at 18 Fairway Drive in Lake Success. I'm on the North Service Road to the Long Island Expressway. Both of my kids have attended the Great Neck South school system. We thank you all for your service. It's a great town. I have one reservation. I called up, the bus wasn't picking up my daughter at 18 Fairway Drive, and we do live on the service road, and we're going through a massive gas project like you all know, and it's tearing up the town, tearing up the roads. It's putting their lives in grave danger. We don't have a sidewalk. We're on the North Service Road. My kids have always gotten picked up at 18 Fairway Drive. All of a sudden, nobody showed up. Nobody came. So I called the principal. They called the bus superintendent. Said we're under a mile from the school. I look on Google Maps, Apple Maps everywhere, 1.5 from this location, 1.3 from another location. I asked the principal to look into it, called the supervisor of transportation, said we can no longer pick up at that location. The problem I have is simple. We all have children. And for my daughter to go out on a service road and walk all the way around the block, which is a half a mile in itself, to try and get a bus over there, putting her life in grave danger. Okay, it's putting my wife late for work, and it's putting me in grave danger thinking about her getting hit on the service road, because it's very dangerous at this point more than ever, with massive construction projects going on. So she can't navigate her way to get around, to walk all the way around there and walk 1.4 miles to the school. The traffic lights stink, they're not in sync, there's construction vehicles all over the roads, And you guys, everybody's putting her life in danger. That's the only question I really want to answer. Of course, all these years I've been living here, paying taxes here, my kids were always picked up and they never had a problem. Now all of a sudden it stopped dead and we got no notification at all.
What I'm going to ask you to do, sir, and I apologize for giving you an assignment, but I'm going to ask you to give us that
I
information.
understand that. I'm talking father to father, supervisor to supervisor.
I hear you.
I worked in the PD in the city. I get all of it.
Mhm.
I just put in my child's life in danger. And it's very important to recognize that we don't have a sidewalk on the North Service Road. You know that. And for the bus, that all of the buses come right by our house. You could easily stop, and they've done it for all of these years. Pick the children up.
There is a reason, sir, why I'm not speaking in absolutes tonight, and I'm not speaking with broad strokes. I want to make it very clear to you and clear to every parent that may watch this video or the presentation. We'll look at every case on an individual basis and make informed decisions, but I just need all the information. So if you would just be kind enough to submit it electronically.
I just came to speak as a father and someone that's been in the village for a long
Well,
time.
as another father,
Stop dead like that, with no notification at all.
I can assure you I
And
hear
her
you.
life is in danger every day.
I can assure you I hear you and I understand.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Yanping Duan. I live in 28 Old Pond Road. I have two daughters go to a private school, and I really appreciate the transportation department's effort in the past 2 years to transfer my kids to and from school.
Thank you.
And starting from this year, I was very surprised to see that the bus stop has been changed from my house to the corner road. So I live in Strathmore community. Right now, the bus stop is at the main entrance of the whole community, and it's a four-way stop sign, and there is a roundabout. So there are a lot of traffic, and so there is no sidewalk. Right now, I have to wait at the bus stop with my daughters and standing at my neighbor's grass. I feel very guilty about standing on the neighbor's grass sometimes, but I have no other stop, no other choice. I have to stand there to be safe. And the issue is that the bus picks up my daughters at 6:45 a.m. in the morning. It's cold and very dark in the morning in the winter time, and so the school requires the kids to wear uniforms. It's very thin with stocking and Mary Jane shoes in the winter. I called the transportation department, and the gentleman told me that you can have your daughters to wear sweatpants, but I'm really sorry, I cannot do that. The school's calendar, the schedule is very tight, and my daughters, the backpack, they need to bring in the lunch pack, the lunch bag, and all the book materials. So their backpack are all fully stuffed. We have no. They have if they need to wear the sweater pants, they need to take another bag with them. It's not very realistic for us, and so my main concern is about the waiting time. Now is the pinpoint for us, because the bus is only an estimate time. Last year we transport there. An issue happened that the bus driver didn't show up at all. I have to wait until so the bus arrival time is 6:40 a.m. in the morning. But after 1 hour, we transport told me that, oh, sorry, the bus couldn't come. So we have to send you another bus driver. So when the bus arrives, it's 7:40. It's 1 hour later from the pickup time. So if it happened this year, what should I do? I stand in the winter time outside with my daughters for 1 hour. I think it's not a very good idea to change the bus stop sign from my house to the corner road. In the neighborhood, my kids are the only kids to take the bus. So I don't see that the change of bus stop will cause any inconvenience to the community. So I think that I emailed the transportation department several times. I haven't got a final answer. The gentleman told me that he needs to discuss with the safety advisor. I really hope that he can consider the real situation of our family. It's about not only about safety and about the health of my kids. And another issue is about.
We're really running short of time,
so
and there are two more
one more
speakers.
thing is about for the grandfather for the private school, the grandfathers. Yeah, I have to echo the gentleman. I think it's the second or third gentleman mentioned that if there is any sibling that are in the private school, because I have a younger son, I want to send my son to my daughter's school as well. So I think that.
You heard my answer to that gentleman.
I just want to echo that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you, and I apologize, do your homework. And if you submit this electronically, I promise you we will review it. I won't promise you that we can make a change, but I will promise you that you will get a definitive answer. Thank you. Thank you for your patience.
My name is Deborah Kaufman, and I live on a street that previously received busing, and then this year it changed, so probably a little less than a mile. And just wanted to know if there's a possibility, because it doesn't sound like a referendum is the route to go, but possibly if there could be an evaluation of maybe the people that previously got busing that don't, maybe there's a way that there are some routes that there's capacity to add on to those routes that maybe could be made longer, or just maybe some buses that.
On a case-by-case basis, I believe there are modifications that can be made, but we have to look at them individually.
Okay, I mean, I did submit, but I was just.
And we will, and I think there are some reasonable solutions that we can suggest that don't further violate the restrictions that we do have.
Hi, I actually live near Parkville. I have a kindergarten, and I cross Lakeville every morning looking over my shoulder, right? So I understand you're not responsible for creating a safe corridor. If transportation can't help and the school board can't help, then who should I be reaching out to? I realize it's probably those same people whose phones you're trying to stop from ringing, but I've just had a dead end.
I'm not sure I understand your question.
There was a...
And can you please state your name so we can follow?
Sure. Chris. I have a kindergartner at Parkville and two more kids who are younger, so
okay.
I don't want to be looking over my shoulder for the next several years crossing Lakeville. Everybody knows.
So you're concerned with the placement of the bus stop?
About the safety corridor. I don't have a... I used to...
You live under a half a mile, in other words?
Right.
Okay.
I understand the limits are under your state law referendum. We all know that. Who can I ask to make Lakeville, that crossing specifically, safer for my kindergartners and future kindergartners?
I mean, there's a possibility, depending upon the number of children at any given time each morning crossing in a crosswalk, that the county would provide a crossing guard. I mean, that's a possibility. Is there a traffic light there or a crosswalk?
There is a crosswalk. I'm hoping to... Everybody knows that everybody speeds on Lakeville.
Yeah.
Is a crossing guard possible? Some kind of, I don't know, speed bump, something that's...
Yeah, the crossing guard actually doesn't come from the district. It comes from the county. There's a procedure on the county's website to request a crossing guard. They're not very helpful necessarily with providing those crossing guards. I mean, obviously, if you're walking to Parkville, there's one right in front of the building, but that's not helping you back on Lakeville Road.
Exactly.
If you could give us the specifics, we could take a look at it. I don't know whether one's been requested in the past for that location, and I don't know if your child or children are the only ones crossing at that location.
Definitely.
Yeah, so if there's, what they do is they'll do a traffic study, they send out a police officer, they'll sit and wait, they'll watch the traffic during a particular time, they'll see how many people cross, and they'll make a determination if based on need and availability of a crossing guard, can they place one there for a particular time in the morning. I can't promise you that, but that is the process of how it works. So it is through the county. So if you can send us the exact information of the spot that you're crossing, we can see if we can find out whether or not there's been a crossing guard requested in the past.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, we thank you for your patience, we thank you for your participation, we thank you for your continued collaboration and communication. I want to offer an apology for how cold it has been in this room. The good news is the heat was blaring warm when the kids were here. The better news is it is being serviced as we speak, so it'll be warm for the kids again, and I am sorry that we are not enjoying that. We're going to take a 5-minute recess, and then we're going to begin the public meeting of the Board of Education. Everyone is welcome to stay. This is Board Recognition Week, so we are doing some special things to recognize our volunteer board members. And thank you very much. We're going to stop the recording and conclude the Transportation Forum. Thank you for your participation.